Sasuke, the lone Uchiha who invaded the 5 Kage summit, deeming him a national terroristic threat, all for the need to murder the substitute for Hokage, Danzo Shimura, Hiruzen's right-hand man at another point in time. And while I placed each of the Hokage against Pain in Jiraiya's position quite recently, I wanted to do the same with Sasuke, who is demonstrably in a similar combative tier, yet has a totally different arsenal and battlefield. So could Sasuke actually have beaten the other official Hokage if they were in Danzo's place against Sasuke, whose overall combative power has been something overlooked in many different regards? And that's where I suppose we can begin with a section of just how strong is Summit Sasuke. On the back of volume 45, it mentions how both Sasuke and Naruto have ever increasing power, implying the amp of the MS and the amp of Sage mode might be comparable. Although Zetsu seems to believe that Naruto is simply stronger than Sasuke prior to entering the summit, which is true, and pushes the notion of the amps being relative once Sasuke's is evolved to its proper state, which the Sage mode doesn't have to do. The Mangekyo develops through the summit and through Sasuke's hatred, which is evolving, and makes his chakra even more potent through it feeling colder and thicker in the case of when he gets his first amp, where Karin, whilst witnessing Sasuke mow down the samurai, states that his chakra is now colder and thicker than when in the Curse Smart second state, where this Sasuke would also get stronger through simply adapting to his 3 Tomoe Sharingan, where he could then match the Raikage in sheer combat speed through following the Raikage, like through the fight, where he would also just get much stronger after not only opening up his MS, but his Susanoo even getting a higher evolution than the one that was essentially just a rib cage and a single arm, where he would then have a full V3 Susanoo, where Karin would state that his chakra is even colder now, again implying that when Sasuke gets stronger, his chakra gets also colder, creating a link between those two and his overall chakra potency actually just relating to his ability, which further gets confirmed when Zetsu recharges some of Sasuke's chakra due to him previously falling to his knees due to chakra fatigue, when Karin notes that his chakra has weakened, creating that link again, which mostly gets emphasized when he eventually does battle Danzo, and he gains the version 3 Susanoo, which has layers of armor and even his crossbow, where Karin can't even believe it's the same Sasuke due to his chakra signature, where Obito then states that his hatred is maturing and his body is only responding to it, which corroborates all of what Tobirama would come to explain well over 100 chapters later when asked about the phenomenon of the Sharingan, stating several things like, quote, "The Sharingan taps into the power of the person's heart, rapidly increasing his or her strength along with the power of their hate. The deeper the darkness gets, the greater the ocular powers become, until the person can no longer be stopped." End quote. Which pushes literally every notion I've implied thus far, and the hatred and power are incredibly linked. Sasuke has grown a ton exponentially through the summit as a result, and considering we would just be taking this, like a fresher Sasuke after having the V3 Susanoo on the bridge, it must be noted that any feat prior in the summit would be attributed to a much weaker Sasuke, even if you suppose that Karin thinks it's a totally different Sasuke than the last one from the summit room. It would at least mean that his power likely isn't comparable to the one that came before, and any feats against the Raikage, for example, are much downplay for this Sasuke, such as Sasuke being able to keep up with the Raikage and Taijutsu without even his Mangekyo active when the Raikage was in his version 1 cloak, where Sasuke, in part to his precognitive abilities, was able to duck under the elbow and pierce straight through the lightning armor into the Raikage's skin, which things like durability, AP, and certainly speed are all increased severely by the point of the bridge, as it's not just the dojutsu increasing as we've discussed, but the taijutsu, genjutsu, and ninjutsu, which Fukasaku states receive a real boost once the chakra gains more potency. And while Sasuke doesn't come across particularly impressive during the Raikage fight, I'd like to notion that he's probably more impressive than you remember, and would have won that fight if Gaara didn't intervene, as Sasuke was shown, albeit barely, reacting to things like the version 2 Raikage's taijutsu through things like his Enton Kagetsuchi or flame control, which Sasuke was able to utilize when the Raikage was going for the lateral bolt of pain, and Sasuke can erect the flames over the entire Susanoo ribcage to protect himself before the Raikage can move at all, to where Sasuke was then able to turn his head while the Raikage is still moving, showing how he can not only react on low ends, but still very efficiently due to his arsenal. He even tanks the chop, which is something I never really heard brought up, though if you analyze the Raikage's arm pattern, he seems to be laterally moving the elbow and then the hand to follow after the elbow is already fixed. You can see that the elbow strike itself is what broke the Susanoo, and the pieces are flying off that point, meaning that the elbow broke the Susanoo, and Sasuke just tanked the actual chop itself to the neck, where you can still see heavy bruising, which seems to disappear after Karin heals him, which is something that could also happen during this fight against the Hokage if they damage him, considering how much further his durability and speed is obviously evolved evolved, but she can still heal him. But what's evolved even more noticeably would be his sheer speed and ability to capitalize on abilities much faster than himself, such as the Inton, which was already faster than the Raikage, and now the Susanoo, which is capable of being fully formed so fast that it even fully erected by the time Obito tried to enter Kamui, showing that it's actually much faster than his combat speed, which was nearly caught in the particle style prior, forcing Obito to save him. So obviously, things like Mei's lava style being dodged in 3 Tomoe, the Raikage being reacted to, and multiple other feats support Sasuke's rivalry with Naruto much further. After Sasuke eventually gains more power in the V4 complete Susanoo, which could happen here once pressed more, but whatever, Sasuke then reaches a point of near blindness where Naruto would then arrive, saving Sakura and sensing Sasuke's power, and even having a clash that allowed them to enter a mental scape to read each other's thoughts, which happens when two opponents are so relative they are virtually equals, which fits with how Naruto states the two would die if they were to fight, with Naruto wanting the Nine Tails power to fight Sasuke, and Sasuke in return wanted the EMS to fight Naruto. Both would get these amps and actually be equals in the war arc, showing how they were likely equals at this point as well, in terms of Sasuke's peak summit self and Sage Mode Naruto's peak self, which would be in line with some dialogue from Obito in the beginning parts of the summit, which further pushes the notion officially of Naruto and Sasuke being reincarnations of Indra and Ashura, where their rivalry is now eternal. And if you recall a few minutes prior, this aligns a lot with what I mentioned on the back of volume 45 and its cover, which implies this as well. The same Sage Naruto, who could be potentially stronger, though I don't subscribe to that, was able to battle Pain, the strongest man in the Akatsuki according to the chapter 364 synopsis statement, and overpower him in several different scuffles, like with the Animal Path, Human Path, Ashura Path, and even Diva Path, which would fit with Naruto also just being stated to be stronger than his fallen sensei Jiraiya, who whilst in Sage Mode was so inferior to Pain that his fastest attack was reacted to, along with the Human Path being able to catch a Sage Mode punch from behind the back, the Preta Path catching his strongest attack and absorbing it, and the Ashura Path ripping Jiraiya's arm off. You name it, there's a lot of feats, and a majority of the feats I just mentioned were in Jiraiya's second state of Sage Mode, where he's more covered and has more frog-like features, implying more senjutsu and his power than the form in which he said he was in a different league from the Sannin title, which obviously quite similar to the Hokage, seeing as Orochimaru in base was able to fight Old Man Hiruzen and be stated equally matched in the fan book, with the anime profile guides also stating that Orochimaru had equal taijutsu to Hiruzen, and obviously Jiraiya being stated to not only be on par with him, but even be put into consideration for the title of Hokage not once, but twice. So, while this may seem tangential, I think if you paid attention, you could likely realize why Sasuke by this point in the series should be established to be an absolute S-class shinobi and worthy to battle against even the Hokage, who we can begin with the first one being Hashirama, where we can also bring up more of Sasuke's abilities like his Genjutsu, Fire Style, Amaterasu, Summons, whatever, we'll bring him up when the time arrives. Firstly, for Hashirama, I think we all know how this goes, but before we state the obvious, I would like to ask if you guys could just leave a like on the video, or even consider subscribing if you are enjoying the video thus far. And if this, maybe this isn't your first time actually hearing me, I also am a little sick right now, so we're working out here for you guys. Anyway, for Hashirama, we also know that he seems to be basically just above the other 4 Hokage, at least based upon respect, making Minato's case a bit more ambiguous, but it's probably still the case. Upon seeing Jubito, Hashirama makes the declaration that he's even stronger than himself, which would imply that there already is a consensus of Hashirama being able, or at least being, the strongest by at least Hiruzen and Tobirama, or else it just wouldn't make sense. And this would just also align with the fairy tales that spread following Hashirama's death, where people would acknowledge even to the modern era that nobody could take down Madara except Hashirama, who was stated to stand at the peak of his clan, which was the strongest clan during the Warring States period, where he would then grow much more in power whilst alive, which the forms being accounted for in this video would just be alive, in which Hashirama was stated to actually be peerless in the shinobi world, and that his wood style was an ability from God, capital G, in Yamato's databook file, which pushes the notion of Hashirama's power, which was so strong in Edo, most weakened, that he can even, take on Madara Uchiha in his Edo body, which was actually enhanced by Kabuto, giving him the Renegon and some wood style, though, even in like an even better Edo Tensei, just in general, compared to like Hashirama's, where Hashirama would still rival him and fight relatively and even superior to Madara in their taijutsu battle. And we know Madara ended up wrapped in a miniature wood dragon and the deity gates at the end, which could also just be dropped on Sasuke with the aid of several other wood style abilities like Hashirama's chakra hands that most people tend to forget that he even has, as he could just like grab Sasuke and then drop these on him. If Sasuke were to hide in the Susanoo, multiple higher level techniques like the wood golem, which rivals Madara's perfect Susanoo, could then easily emerge, giving Hashirama a pretty easy victory over Sasuke. But I mean, it's Hashirama. Following Hashirama, though, we have his brother Tobirama, who is pretty interesting for a discussion against Sasuke, seen as Tobirama is really strong. Even when reanimated whilst heavily weakened and suppressed, he's capable of using one-sign water walls, which Kakashi takes at least 2 in the Kakuzu fight, and he's considered to be the top jutsu master of Konoha during this age, according to Mike Guy. However, Tobirama can do it with a single sign and overpower one of Hiruzen's prided jutsu, being the Dragon Flame Jutsu, which is stated to be the strongest fire style in the world, very befitting of his title of the strongest of the 5 kage, which would also just apply to Tobirama, seeing as the fire style is supposed to be a testament to his level. But even the Anbu bystanders believe that they are witnessing a Hokage level clash after seeing them, and the title of Hokage has to not only stand at the peak of Konoha but the entire world at large, showing just how powerful Tobirama was during his own era, which was supported by Danzo, who stated that there is no greater shinobi in Konoha than Tobirama during that time. Even Madara Uchiha implied that either due to his flying thunder god or speed in the Warring States period, Tobirama used to boast the fastest speed of any shinobi, and since he can keep up with base Hashirama and taijutsu, or at least remain relevant in the fight with Jubito, this shouldn't come to a surprise. In the battle, Jubito is shown completely running through Tobirama and Hashirama's clone, where Tobirama was able to react and place bombs all over Jubito's body, primarily on his left side, which is crucial as many people believe that Tobirama ran around and placed these bombs by hand, although this seems to be quite unlikely for a couple reasons. The first being that Hashirama and Tobirama's trajectory doesn't change, implying that Tobirama couldn't have moved his center of mass drastically and likely would have been stationary, which fits with how Tobirama was able to mark the paper inside of his chest for the tandem bombs, which he could have also done for these bombs, which do have different seals, although they could have still happened in the same manner. And likely, if you take this symbol right here to be a box piece of the kanji, though it didn't convert to a proper bomb due to its size like most bombs do, it's pretty telling. And most of the bombs are on like Jubito's left side in random locations, implying that they are simply tossed out, which is possible seeing as Tobirama was fast enough to even place a flying Raiji mark manually against this unstable Jubito, who was able to outspeed old Hiruzen as well, showing just how fast Tobirama is. This speed is going to be Sasuke's largest problem, as Tobirama is able to body flicker and teleport during the time it takes an experienced EMS Sasuke to erect his Susanoo hand to shield both him and KCM 1.5 Naruto, which would also be consistent with how Tobirama can mentally react in Blitz, KCM 1.5 Naruto, and EMS Sasuke's combo attack alongside dazed Minato. This would mean that Tobirama could also just be much faster than this Sasuke's typical combat speed, at least with the usage of body flicker and flying Raiji. Although I would argue that he could just at least some degree with his combat speed, although we do know that Sasuke's Susanoo arrow is a blitz level above his own combat speed, as shown against Danzo, who could keep up with Sasuke's combat speed somewhat, yet could barely react at all against the arrow, which is similar to the Enton, which Sasuke could also use to legitimately like shield himself, presenting an actual issue for Tobirama in this fight. Even when Danzo, who uses wind style, which is implied to be a more sharp type of chakra, to amplify his kunai, it simply breaks on the Susanoo, so Tobirama amplifying kunai might be out of the equation, and at least dealing with the Susanoo's durability, meaning that he might have to rely more on the water style we mentioned earlier through things like his water wall, the severing wave that cut the god tree alongside Enma, his water dragons, water bullets, and even potentially like his heavenly weeping, which Madara felt the need to block with his Susanoo rather than evading it, which could certainly imply some higher ends for Tobirama's overall proficiency in water style, which shouldn't really be inconsistent, or considering a lot of his lore, like even his water wall from earlier, meaning that like if Sasuke were to utilize fireball jutsus from inside of the Susanoo like he did against Kabuto, he would simply be overwhelmed, and this would just follow for if he were to use more like potential snake or hawk summons if they were to come out, as Tobirama could probably just snipe them out of the air or whatnot, leaving Sasuke basically just his sheer ability ability to react via the Susanoo arrow, and more importantly, the Enton Kagetsuchi. Such an ability is actually noted to be the greatest offensive ocular jutsu according to Sage Kabuto, after literally using all of the Rinnegan abilities through controlling Nagato, where he also witnessed Itachi's MS abilities as well. And like with how the Totsuka Blade and Yadamir forced Itachi's Susanoo to be known as the greatest ocular ability in Databook 3 during that time, now Sasuke, according to the 4th Databook, has surpassed his brother in ocular abilities, representing how the Enton for Sasuke is like the Totsuka Blade and Yadamir for Itachi, and how they are kind of the trump cards. Sasuke is capable of forming the Enton to make these spiked shields to cover either the Susanoo or to defend himself entirely, and even the Wisp Balls that are in a lower form than its EMS, showing just how closely linked armor, and how they obviously are ability-wise, where Sasuke is shown with a ball of Amaterasu to fire out multiple other wisps of Enton at the opponent, firing out 5 shots, where against Gaara, Sasuke can do a similar thing, not having his EMS obviously, but instead, which, with like 3 instead of 5 main shots, which could also just help Sasuke in like pressuring Tobirama, potentially catching him off guard if he isn't spamming the FTG. Another ability Sasuke shows prominence in his EMS would be like his Genjutsu, which he also uses to like just subdue the White Zetsu, whose chakra capacity is pretty notable. And while Sasuke obviously won't be able to grab Tobirama's head and do this due to Tobirama's ability to use both Body Flicker and Flying Rising to a very high degree, but his Genjutsu could potentially catch him lacking, as it even stunned Killer B, the perfect Jinchuriki, when it was much weaker, where it can now drop dead sensory type shinobis like C. Though Tobirama also has sensory along with potential Genjutsu of his own, like the Bringer of Darkness, which he uses in the anime, and while Hashirama does use it in the manga and is the only listed user in the 2nd databook, Tobirama is listed with the ability to use Yin style in the 4th databook when Hashirama isn't, and regardless, it would make sense for Tobirama to have Genjutsu that counters ocular abilities, seeing as he fought Izuna and Madara, but even more so in rebelling Uchiha like Setsuna, who is noted in the 3rd databook to have wanted a rebellion in response to his disdain for Tobirama's reign as Kage. And this jutsu could have been one to subdue people like that, and could even work on Sasuke if you think he could like encompass the Susanoo, where Tobirama could potentially use it in like, in conjunction with like his ability to teleport behind people and snare them when they are sure of victory, like how Madara describes Tobirama to consistently do. This is seemingly one of Tobirama's better win cons, along with his like large chakra reserves for him to just like outlast Sasuke as well, especially when accounting for how like we established the idea that Sasuke is going to have to frequently spam his MS abilities to remain relevant in the battle against Tobirama, who doesn't need to use such taxing abilities, although he certainly does possess them, like the Edo Tensei and Tandem Paper Bomb combo, which he won't really be able to use on himself. But with the speed disparity and conservative arsenal mentioned, I could see Tobirama's water style being able to at least like press Sasuke off him, like with how Tobirama used to flood battlefields and create tsunamis according to the 1 Decade to 100 Ninja Guide, which could also just be more pressure for the tandem to be able to actually come out, which would obviously bomb not only the entire bridge, but it would likely just evaporate Sasuke along with his Susanoo, considering it's capable of damaging things that even a point blank concentrated Ten Tails Bijou Bomb couldn't. And even if for whatever reason Sasuke would survive this, or if Tobirama just wouldn't use it, then I think again Tobirama's water style pressuring Sasuke into fatiguing himself, or Tobirama like catching him in a surprise attack in Genjutsu, or just both, like it really just does present a really good case as to why Tobirama wins this fight at least more times than Sasuke, just due to a slight lack of win cons for Sasuke. But I think they definitely could be interpreted as win cons in things like the Enton and what have you, but I would still just give this fight to Tobirama like 7 out of 10 times. Following that, we have the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen, Tobirama's student and the prided professor and god of shinobi of his time, who in his prime was said to have surpassed both Hashirama and Tobirama, judging by the reputation of himself. And although we are taking old man Hiruzen, he's still extremely powerful, as we hinted at earlier, being stated to actually stand at the peak of not only Konoha, but the world at large 3 times in the fan book, and by Kabuto, who states a similar thing in regards to its reputation, which would be pretty consistent with how the the Anbu still believe he actually is living up to this reputation as the strongest of the 5 Kage, which is likely not only credited to his like incredible taijutsu skill and ability, but his extremely wide array of ninjutsu, which elaborated on why Orochimaru, who states Hiruzen has knowledge of every jutsu in Konoha. And while this is typically a mistranslation for it to actually say that like he possesses every jutsu in Konoha, the back of the 1 Decade 100 Ninja Guide does still state that he mastered every jutsu, which is similar for Orochimaru in the same guide who was his disciple. I mean, Hiruzen knew over 1,000 genjutsu alone, so I assume you can only imagine what he actually still could pull off against Sasuke when the opportunities arise. However, unlike Tobirama, Hiruzen's physical ability doesn't really seem to be all that impressive, being equal to Orochimaru, who at least is inferior to Sage Jiraiya, who Naruto is very superior to, and Sasuke then being equal to that Naruto creates a pretty bad light for how Hiruzen actually enters this battle, although there are some high-end interpretations for Hiruzen through his Edo Tensei scaling, where he does have the same amount of wrinkles from the Orochimaru fight with, which probably like some better stamina, where like his ninjutsu ability doesn't really change, being like he's still able to use 5 clones, each using a different nature at least, to then overpower the Guru statue, which was seemingly above the War Arc 5 Kage while somewhat fatigued. However, even much earlier in the war, Hiruzen was able to arrive at the battlefield prior to even a base EMS Sasuke, which could imply that his body flicker is simply faster. However, Sasuke does have Taka with him, so he could have just been keeping pace or slowed down to better keep up with them. With these 2 feats being mentioned, and yes, they are impressive, they aren't his best feat in Edo, and that would be his ability to perceive and react to Jubito, and potentially better than Tobirama. Now, think back to how much Tobirama could react to Jubito's charge, right? He was capable of thinking and at least raising an arm, though he couldn't move his entire body. And Hiruzen does virtually the same thing, where he even better analyzes the TSO, hypothesizing them to be similar to Onaki's particle style, where Hiruzen was then able to completely evade his shoulder, but not his entire body. Sounds virtually identical to Tobirama, no? And yeah, it is pretty much the same. However, Hiruzen is actually reacting to another variable in speed, being the extension of the TSO, which was stagnant against Tobirama and Hashirama, potentially implying that Hiruzen just outspeeds Tobirama, which may align with how the anime has him arriving before Tobirama to the battlefield. The only real way to get around this would be saying that Jubito had a fluctuating power level, hence to why Tobirama was able to react to him so often, or why old Hiruzen may just be faster. It's your choice. However, like Tobirama, Hiruzen fans also seem to take scenes out of context, like when Hiruzen cuts the God Tree roots, saving Naruto faster than Tobirama, which could mean he's faster, right? This just doesn't work for a few reasons. The first of which being that Hiruzen's initial distance is entirely unknown, and he could have had a much shorter distance to cover than Tobirama, and secondly, Tobirama has been far more active in the fight compared to Hiruzen, so this feat just doesn't really assert Hiruzen to be faster than Tobirama, and I'm going to leave this one up to your guys' interpretation. If you think he's much faster than Tobirama, then he certainly wins, and if you think he's capable of moving as fast as Tobirama by like some degree, but has a very limited chakra supply, like resulting in easier fatigue, then I think the fight still becomes somewhat interesting with how Hiruzen could potentially capitalize on his wide array of jutsu, including mud walls and dragon flames, which are both pretty high praised jutsu. If you do assert that he can move similarly to Tobirama, then you run into the same issue of him not being able to consistently move at that speed for a long period of time, where he could then capitalize on those jutsu, leaving Sasuke room to completely defend himself in the Enton and fire out the Susanoo arrows, which are both faster than himself, who's already established to be above this Hiruzen in my opinion. Hiruzen's only real saving grace against Sasuke would just be probably his ability to resist genjutsu, or at least fight proficiently in situations without his eyes, like whenever he was able to fend off the other reanimated Hokage's taijutsu using only his sense of smell, showing just how adept the third Hokage is, and coupled with Enma, the strongest of all animal summons, who could potentially allow for Hiruzen to create diversions and use Enma to like strike at him. This probably just wouldn't really be enough to give Hiruzen the win over this Sasuke, even if Hiruzen is in a much more serious mental state for him to be like above the 5 Kage. It really doesn't matter, as Sasuke simply would be as well due to his power growth through the summit, which seems to have already reached his peak, meaning that I just give Sasuke the win over Hiruzen, who's more so Sani level, like 7 out of 10 times. Moving along in numerical order, we have Minato, the 4th and fastest Hokage, who unlike Hiruzen is going to be presented into this battle in some pretty solid footing, considering how Minato has always really been like a force beyond Hiruzen, who believes that Minato could have actually beaten Orochimaru despite not believing that neither himself nor anyone else in the village could, which would also fit with the chapter 238 synopsis statement, which states that Minato had unrivaled strength, which is one way to assert that Hokage Minato is not only clearly above the likes of the 4th Raikage, who compares himself to the Jonin Minato when he implies that the 4th Hokage is faster than him, but he's dead, which basically gets confirmed in the chapter's 538 synopsis statement, which straight up states the 4th is even faster than Raikage. The 4th data book points to a very similar concept, stating that the Raikage, referencing his lightning cloak in the war arc, boasts a godlike speed not inferior to the yellow flash, and Minato is placed amongst a similar tier of godlike speed, but it states that even among the elites of the other nations, he's praised among all shinobi as the greatest in godlike speed, which fits with his striking reputation as not only a Jonin, where he would gain and be able to strike fear in shinobi of all nations and gain the infamous run inside order, which wouldn't really contradict anything, seeing as Minato then gets stronger to become Hokage and obtain Sage Mode whilst Hokage through training, as we know that the Toad Scroll has 4th Hokage inscribed in it, and with such training he would not only be fast enough to blitz the full Nine Tails combat speed, but even redirect and transport his Bijou bombs to the Flying Thunder Gun Guiding Thunder, which would imply that he was prepared to redirect multiple attacks, likely using this same barrier, which is noticed by Shikaku, who noticed and actually states it has to be Minato, despite Hiruzen being there and implying that Hiruzen couldn't have dealt with these bombs despite having the highest level of sealing in the world, as implied by Orochimaru, which would fit with how Minato's tetragram seal is even more solid than Killer Bee's steel shell seal, and Hiruzen does rely on Minato during the Nine Tails attack, despite being confident in taking out the full Nine Tails alone when telling his Anbu guards to escort civilians and he'll deal with Kurama, which he does by managing to push it out of the village, likely through just shoving it as the anime portrays, rather than him smacking Kurama upside the head with Enma like a baseball bat like how the games portray it. However, even with him being able to move Kurama and combat him in some sense, he still needed Minato. This wouldn't conflict with anything either, as the position of Hokage is typically given to the strongest ninja in the village, and we know Minato lacked experience on Hiruzen's level, and Hiruzen was one of the most loved political figures ever, meaning that Minato's sheer ability was that much greater than Hiruzen's, as he was actually just granted the title of Hokage, which was done in the games through a sparring match where Minato won, and regardless, this would just be through what makes Minato kind of special: his speed and sealing ninjutsu, which we've already touched on a little bit, but Kurama, after witnessing Minato augment the tetragram seal in his own style, states that Minato is like Hashirama's generation, or is in the same caliber as Hashirama, depending on your translation, which doesn't really matter, as Kurama contextually is just talking about those who have tried to seal and subdue him before, which would only just be Madara, Hashirama, and Mito, meaning that Minato would have, he'd have to have sealing on their level, which shouldn't really come to a surprise, as sealing ninjutsu is his kind of specialty, seeing as Kushina questioned why Minato even needed the Reaper Death to seal the full Nine Tails, and Minato's speed was already shown faster than the other Hokages by quite a significant degree. Minato was able to completely blitz each and every Hokage to the battlefield by such a substantial degree that he was able to actually place a mark offshore and then teleport the Ten Tails Bijou Bomb, then arrive back to the mainland prior to it actually relocating, where he would then have a conversation with Naruto and place 3 other marked kunai in ready locations, which would force Tobirama to state that Minato is quick at striking too, implying a conjunction to his previous compliment of Minato having a faster body flicker than himself. Minato having striking speed and reaction speed at least above or relative or at least proportional to that of his body flicker should just be obvious, seen as the FTG, for those who haven't really heard my argument, is a space-time ability that allows for flight across space and time, according to the second data book, which also states that it's a speed not even comparable to body flicker. And we know that with a few other, statements from the data book, in the remarks, like the third data book's dictionary section in the back, which states that space-time ninjutsu allows one to transport themselves into a subspace beyond the concepts of space and distance to then relocate at a different location, and this space would be similar to that of the space between the 2 dots on the opposite ends of a piece of paper if the piece of paper was folded. In this space, Minato then is demonstrating that he was able to move so much faster than Obito that he was able to either, he's actually able to enter the subspace and propel his Rasengan and change his body by 90 degrees, which would mean that Minato's reaction speed and ability to slam a Rasengan is above or proportional to even his body flicker speed that's above the other Hokage. So if I haven't really hammered it home yet, this match is kind of an overkill to say the least. Minato would be so much faster than Sasuke that using things like his guiding thunder to transport away Susanoo arrows or simply evading them should be pretty easy. The Susanoo itself, like with Itachi's outside of the Yadamir and Totsuka blade, is stated to be chakra, meaning that Minato could just teleport it away and then cut Sasuke's neck or simply outlast him until the Susanoo drops, where he could then amplify his kunai with chakra to cut his throat, like with what he was actually confident doing against the Jonin A in his lightning cloak, who was already known as the strongest in the village through his title of A. Against Sasuke, Minato could also just use Rasengans to then like slap him up. With his Rasengan attacks, he's actually capable of keeping up with late War Art Kakashi in his Raikiri against Zetsu, who calls both of their attacks persistent, which is just it's just one of many scaling chains as to why Minato is KCM 2 Naruto level in speed, and when this Sasuke isn't even quite KCM 1 level in speed, you can kind of see why it's such an overkill match. So all in all, it should be an easier win for Minato, and as he just has multiple different methods for blitzing and killing Sasuke before his advantages like the Enton come into play. And I don't even really feel the need to bring up the possibility of other nature releases coming out, as Minato doesn't really use those, and he simply tries to just blitz off start via body flicker or flying Raijin, as shown in literally every fight. So yeah, Minato wins like 8 or 9 out of 10 times. Last and unfortunately least, we have Tsunade. As many people have been requesting I discuss her to kind of go into these matches, but to put it simply, she's a case very similar to Hiruzen without her higher assertions of being Tobirama level and whatnot. Tsunade from the War Arc is noted to have strength greater than the Raikage, but be slower in sheer speed. However, outside of Orochimaru, or outside of this I guess, Orochimaru is confident killing her without his arms because he has Kabuto with him, and he's also thinking of a prime Tsunade, who is noted in the fanbook to boast the reputation of being the strongest kunoichi, although no one knows her whereabouts. Jiraiya is also confident in killing her, and her only real saving grace would be that she's called every bit of a match for Orochimaru and Jiraiya after having her will renewed, which wouldn't mean much to Sasuke anyway. And the reason for my more conservative approach would be due to me not taking her War Arc counterpart, as I didn't for the other Hokage, despite characters like Tobirama doing much better if he was an Edo, and Tsunade would have also just do much better due to her will of fire. But outside of that, Sasuke should just be massively stronger and faster than Tsunade, leading Tsunade to only really win through something like her 100 healings that could literally just heal limbs and organs. And if you do grant her War Arc feats or her ability to shatter Madara Susanoo, though that only really happened when in conjunction with the other Kage, also aiding in combo attacks like the Raikage and the Tsuchikage. So even like that, just her being able to break through Susanoo isn't even really a given. With her, also her only real thing is that she's Sannin level, and we've kind of gone over that against Sasuke, and so I just say that Sasuke wins through the same way he virtually would win against Hiruzen. But that's the video. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Did Sasuke do better or worse than expected? Do you think some of the Hokage would have done better? Either way, make sure to certainly let me know in the comments below, and most importantly, please consider subscribing if you have enjoyed the video. And until next time, hopefully I'm not sick then. God bless you guys. Love you guys.